Nigeria. Let's kickstart with this particular development coming as President Bola Tinubu has met with labor leaders and talks to resolve the standoff between the national new minimum wage as continue next week. Details of this meeting were not fully disclosed, but both the federal government and the organized labor seems to be in agreement about the need to continue talks ahead of possible resolutions. TVC State House correspondent Femi Akonde has details in this report.
President Bola Tinubu welcomes leaders of organized labor that has held the government at its jugular for foot dragging in implementing the new national minimum wage. He hopes this meeting will stave off another national shutdown and give him time to consult with the governors, local governments and other wage-paying institutions. The federal government had proposed 62,000 naira as minimum wage, while organized labor proposed 250,000 naira. But contrary to expectations, this meeting was not to negotiate a new minimum wage. It was basically to compare notes and set the stage for another round of talks.
And the president is keeping to his promise to consult. He doesn't just want to take a unilateral decision. It's a decision that affects all of us. So he has consulted with the subnationals. Consultation with the organized private sector is ongoing. You have also seen that this consultation with the organized labor has also happened today.
When father and children talk, you know what it is. That's just exactly what has happened, and it took us almost like an hour. And I believe that it's all for good.
The leaders of organized labor are rather optimistic about the potential of holding talks with the president. But they also clearly say their insistence on 250,000 naira as national minimum wage has not changed.
We agreed to look at the real terms, probably convene the next 1 week. So that's where we are.
We went in there, we made all the arguments, economic analysis, macro, micro, fiscal and monetary issues. So we put everything forward, and at the end, the president also made his remark.
The meeting between organized labor and President Tinubu will reconvene next week. For Nigerian workers, this meeting between President Bola Tinubu and leaders of the organized labor may not have lived up to expectation. Some of them had expected a resolution or at least a new position on the new minimum wage. But for now, the talks will continue and the workers will continue to wait. Femi Akonde, TVC News, Abuja.
Many thanks, Femi Akonde. There it is indeed a waiting period for workers in Nigeria. Joining us via Zoom from the UK is global and social change advocate Tunde Doherty. Many thanks for joining us on the program this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure having you on the show. So what do you make of this renewed negotiation between the federal government and organized labor union on the minimum wage issue in the country?
It's a great step in the right direction. A negotiation is always part of labor union to give the workers a very good deal with government or with employee. So what the president has done is huge to sit down with the labor leaders and consolidate and find a lasting solution to the issue of the minimum wage. Minimum wage in itself is it's determined by quite a lot of things, you know, affordability, region, state, in country, out country, and all of these parameters need to be put in perspective before you consolidate and put a figure that might not be visible by employers. Because when we are looking at this issue of a minimum wage is the lowest that any employer can pay in any country, because it becomes a legally agreed minimum payout for an employee. by an employer. So therefore, in our country, we have the civil servant, we have the public servant, and we have the multinational private employers. So will that minimum wage be affordable? There are quite a lot of things we have to look at. The government, the president is offering 62,000, which is very reasonable. And the organized labor is talking about 250. I would say it's not reasonable, but the point is that is it affordable? Can the government or can employers pay such amount of money? And minimum wage also is determined by the economic situation of the country. Yes, we know that things are hard everywhere. We know that there is inflation. There's too much of economic downturn. Not in Nigeria, everywhere in the world, because of the crises and the wars that are happening in Ukraine, the wars in Israel and Hamas, and all over. You know, the world is still just healing from the pandemic and all of that. So, and in Nigeria too, we know that what insecurity has caused in terms of food prices. Farmers are unable to go to farm. And but the government is really doing their best to make sure that they cushion this effect and they are able to put a figure that is affordable.
All right.
Though they have not the time now, but definitely within the next few weeks, as the consultation goes on, an agreement will be reached.
An agreement will be reached, but I also want to pick it up from your statement saying that the federal government is offering 62,000 naira, and to you that seems affordable. Let's not forget that the NLC had a template while bringing out this figure, which is a family of 6, 4 children, and the parents, of course. Does that seem viable, looking at the state of the economy?
You see, as a global labor advocate, I can tell you that there is no amount of negotiations or no amount of consolidations that can satisfy the satisfy the working class. Because if you put the parameters we're talking about in places or in perspective, you find out that human wants are unlimited. And whether we pay 62,000 or we pay 250,000, the whole thing, it backs back on the fact that the affordability of the paying master or the employer or the government, because the government will set it as legislature. What about those that are running their own private business? You know. So when you are calculating on the basis of the children, on the basis of the parameter in Nigeria, do we really have a measure of how many children a family can have? You know, we don't have the measure in Nigeria that this is the number of children you can have. It also depends on affordability. If you can have many children, yes, you can have. If you can afford it, good. And if you cannot, it still depends on you. So the issue that the president has tabled before the labor is for the labor unions to be reasonable in this negotiation, because at the end of the day, what are the parameters in place when it comes to wage determination? How constantly will this wage be in the increase, or what are the percentage of increase every year? It's just like in the UK here. Just of recent, almost every year there's always wage review, and the minimum wage is set. At least currently now in the UK, the minimum wage as from April is £11.44, and that is, if you are for adults, £11.44. So every employer must be able to pay to pay £11.44. That's the baseline. Also, you have the determinant of wages. If you are age 16 to 17, it's £6.40. If you are age 18 to 20, is £8.60, and 21 above is £11.44. So the thing is that you must be able to pay these wages, because also changes there.
Mr. Doherty, what appreciable minimum wage do you think would be good for Nigerians? Some are even advocating a living wage at this time. So which one do you think is appropriate for Nigerians?
Now you are talking about living wage. Living wage is different from minimum wage. Living wage is determined by the region or in country or where you live. You understand? Because the house rent that is charged in Lagos is not the same house rent that is charged in Ibadan or in Ilorin. The food, the price of food in Ilorin compared to the price of food in Lagos is it's not the same. So when you look at living wages, it's determined by where you live, depending on the cost of living in that area. If you live in urban area, for example, it's more expensive. So if you are paying me 62,000 naira in urban area, if I in urban area, it cannot satisfy. It might not be able to satisfy my cost of living. But if you pay me 62,000 naira in my village, in my village, I can be well as a big boy. You understand? So living wage, minimum wage, they are two different things. You understand? So, but if you look at it, because the economy has just been, the president since as assuming office has been making sure that it brings the economy into a practicable economy where everybody can have that assurance that when you do business, you what you get in return is able to satisfy is able to satisfy you and the system. So like currently now, if you look at the exchange rate, it's still not balanced. You understand? So there are a lot of parameters that are being worked on by government.
All right.
Government is trying their best in terms of making sure that they resolve the transportation issue since the removal of the oil subsidy. Having CMG buses converting, making sure that rail is being put in perspective to work, making sure that even in Abuja, I understand that the metro rail is now working in Abuja as in Lagos. So a lot of things are being put in perspective. So we need to be patient, and we need not to be too put too much effort in putting what is not affordable. Because at the end of the day, even when they were paying 30,000, how many states were able to even afford the 30,000?
And that's where I want to, pick up my next question from. The NLC president was very honest about the outcome of the meeting early this week. He also mentioned that the president brought to the fore conversations around energy and Nigerians not paying as much as other West African nations. Cameroon, for instance, on the fuel subsidy removal, Cameroon pays about 2,000 on fuel. And so he also highlighted some other factors that may be, deterring us from, achieving what we want to achieve from this, such as the issue of enforcement. You mentioned that there are some states that are still having issues even paying the 30,000 naira. And that's why we're having the conversations of viability and affordability of state to pay. But do you see a light at the end of this tunnel? And do you see the NLC president who has the power to evoke the minimum wage law on governance?
I see an end to it because the president is a very reasonable leader, and is somebody who has seen it all, he was a manager, he was a wet manager where he worked in the private sector, and he was a governor, and he was able to at least make sure that in Lagos State was a state in the country that never holds salary. And the thing is that the challenges that is there for the president to say yes, I want to dialogue with the labor, with the trade union, with the labor leaders, means that yes, we have to come to terms. We have to be reasonable. We have to look at what is happening around us. You have to help this government. You have to help this government to build this renewed hope that we are trying to instill within the nation. So therefore, I see it that both labor and the government will reach an agreement as soon as practicable. It's just an understanding that we really need. Yeah, wages will always be in the front burner anytime, any day within the labor sector. But the other thing is that when you compare the minimum wage in Nigeria to other countries, there are some things you have to look at. For example, in the United Kingdom here, there are you have to, when they say minimum wage is £11 mark you 20% of that has to go to tax, and you have to pay your national insurance. So at the end of the day, when you put when you take all of those things, what is the net? What is the net that you have? In the US, for example, their minimum wage is £7.25. You understand? They will still pay tax. They will still pay NI. So when you are comparing minimum wage in a country to another country, I don't think the different countries have their different challenges. So I believe that within the peculiarity of Nigeria and the economy of Nigeria, as we have our own crisis and what have you, we should be able to manage the situation whereby at the end of the day, both labor, both organized labor and the government happy. And at the end of the day, it is the people, it is the workers that will benefit from it. So it will be a joy for both the workers, the employers, the employees, and all as sundry. So I believe that agreement will come as soon as practicable.
Mr. Tunde Doherty, I like your optimism, because you are saying that the federal government and labor leaders will reach an agreement next week. Quite good about that. But going forward, with all these agitations, considering the inflation rates in Nigeria, what's appreciable figure, if you want to be realistic to Nigerians, what appreciable figure do you think the federal government will do that will make the labor leaders back down with this agitation?
For me, I can't say, because one, the 62,000 minimum wage per month, which is average, which is about over 100% increase in the current minimum wage. To me, it's reasonable in an agreement. But I believe if the government can do a bit more, probably that will. I don't want to give a figure. I don't want to give a figure because I don't know the cost of the government.
You are very diplomatic about that. It's a fine place to leave it. It's a fine place to leave it. Global and social change advocate Tunde Doherty, and we want to say congratulations on your new appointment as the UK chapter, the chairman of the UK chapter of the All Progressives Congress, APC.
Thank you very much. I was expecting you to attend the Congress. Come, please.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Hold on, to have me here today, and I'm proud to be with you anytime. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us.